This podcast is brought to you by Blackaby Ministries International. To find out more, visit blackaby.org.
Welcome to the Richard Blackaby Leadership Podcast. My name is Sam. I'm your host, and we are here to help take your leadership to the next level. And helping us do that, the one and only Dr. Richard Blackaby.
The indubitable.
Yeah, that was the word. I was on the tip of my tongue there. I just couldn't quite catch it in time. Well, Richard, it's good to see you, and we're back again doing another episode. And this episode is unlike others in that
unlike others.
More unlike others. Yeah. It's even less like others. We'll say that it's maybe perhaps for the ADD listeners who perhaps prefer to follow various trains of thoughts rather than
all
just
at the same time. Yes.
Yeah, all at the same time. So these are just some thoughts on leadership that you've had.
Yeah.
In no particular order.
That's right.
On no particular topic.
I'm calling it leadership potpourri. Just you normally would take 27, 30 minutes and just sort of chew on a particular topic, but this is just a bunch of...
This is a tasting.
A tasting, yes. It's just some appetizers.
Yeah.
Some random thoughts I haven't had time to develop more deeply.
So in that spirit, if any of these random thoughts strike your fancy as you listen, let us know. And if we need to dig a little deeper on some, send us a line. Richard is at Richard Blackaby on Twitter. You can reach him there. You can email us, podcast@blackaby.org, and let us know your thoughts.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure some of these we will flesh out more, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting just now and then, just randomly coming up with some thoughts that are out there at the moment that I've encountered in my travels and talking with people. So here's just a couple of thoughts I'll throw out there. One is periodically go 30,000 feet. If you're the leader, you need to get up 30,000 feet and look down and take a look at your organization. Ron Heifetz, a great leadership thinker, I think he's the one who talks about get out on the balcony.
I love a good balcony.
A good balcony. I know, anytime you're in a hotel and it's got a balcony, especially if you're in a hotel that's by a beach or something, first thing you do is you open up the curtains and you step out and say, what can I see from this balcony? What's the view like? And you look down on people and you just have a bird's eye view. And leaders have to do that. One of the big dangers of leaders is that they get too enmeshed on the ground level. And so all they're seeing is all the details and the machinery. And but you don't see how the different personnel are fitting together. You don't see the big picture. You don't see the direction. Are we making any progress? When I'm down on the ground level, I'm seeing all the buzz of activity, but I don't know that it's actually getting us anywhere.
Getting us in the right direction.
Yeah, we may be going the wrong direction for all we know. Someone has got to, at some point, pull away from all the busyness and take a bird's eye view. And so... and that's up to the leader. That's the leader's job.
Right.
The people on the shop floor, that's not really their assignment. Their assignment is just keep on working here and doing this role that I have. But they're counting on the leader, seeing and it's amazing sometimes how you put people together as part of leadership. And putting the right people together, the right combinations of people together. So, so just now and then, and by the way, you just have to build in time to do that. It's not something that just is natural. We all tend to sort of gravitate down to the shop floor too, but
if that's where the action is, that's where the rubber meets the road, and it's fun and it's engaging, and
you need to walk the shop floor at times, but there's other times you need to get away from that floor and you need to go up to the balcony and look down and say, let me get the big picture here, and then when I go back down, I know how to work with people. So go up 30,000 feet. A second thing is that people need lanes. And by that, what I mean is that everybody needs some specific assignments. Some people are better at certain things than others. So, for instance, you may have a guy in your business who's a great engineer, knows how to put things together. But But when he gets involved in sales, he's a disaster. Customer service, he's a disaster. I kind of had this when I was running a seminary. I had people that were great in the classroom when they were teaching Old or New Testament or theology or something. They could be great, but in administering staff, working with other people, they could be a disaster. And so just because you're good at one thing does not mean you're good at everything. And so for a leader, one of the things you need to do, and now some people can have a pretty broad lane. I mean, there's some people like yourself, Sam, you've got a wide range of skill sets. And so some people can have a pretty wide lane that they're involved in. But if your lane gets too wide, it's hard to get stuff done. You're weaving too much. You're running here, you're running there, and you need to be making progress. There's a story of Albert Einstein. Of course, as a Jewish person, he was one of the most famous Jews of his day. And when the nation of Israel was being formed in 1948, there were those who actually talked about Einstein being the first president of Israel. They thought with his international status, that would really be good for the country and give them some respect. But everyone kind of thought, this guy is a crazy smart genius, but he can't find his way home when he lives a block from the university where he's teaching. So we probably need to just realize you can be brilliant at physics or whatever it is you do. That doesn't mean that you can just run a country or you can administer staff.
This makes me think too of this sort of, I guess, trend or fad of kind of doing away with offices and this sort of everybody's on, in a big room and you just have desks and it's kind of nobody has like a set office.
Yeah.
And how this can be very good for team building and building a culture, but not everyone works well when it's a noisy environment.
Right.
And so, yes, it's good in some ways, and in other ways, people actually need to have that cubicle or a room with a door so they can close out the noise and actually do the work.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm actually reading a book right now that is suggesting that it's not good. That's been a trend to take away offices, but
everybody,
they're going away from that now.
Yeah, they're finding that it's not as productive.
Yeah,
it's great for collaboration, for morale perhaps, but for actually getting the work done, it can be counterproductive.
Yeah, and so there's a point where let's give people their lanes, let's give them their quiet place where they can think and make progress. And so as a leader, you want to kind of watch and see when people are like. There's some people that love to get into other people's lanes and they love to give advice and their feedback on stuff they don't even necessarily know very well themselves, and that becomes annoying and it's wasting everybody's time. And so I find one of the things leaders have to do is figure out what lane does this staff person need to stay in. And when they get outside that lane, they're not nearly as effective. They may like it, they may enjoy kind of meddling, but they're not good at that. And so if I want an organization that's working well, let me figure out what lanes people need to be in. And then we're going to get the most out of them. A third thing, we talked a little bit before about just warning signs, but also just see the red lights with your staff people. And there's lots of stuff where, to me, it's a red light to say, hey, pay a little more attention to this person. And so when you're working with people, some of them maybe they talk too much. They just dominate. Every time you start to ask questions or you want to brainstorm with your team, this person just talks too much, and what they're saying is not necessarily all that helpful. They just are talking, and sometimes they just like to fill the air. Now there are people who are kind of wired that way, but that can become a warning, a sign, a red light to me. Here's a guy who's not thinking enough. He's talking more than he's thinking, or he's not respecting his other team members enough to let them contribute. There seems to be an insecurity there. This person is, he just needs to keep talking. What's he trying to prove? Because he doesn't really have much to say. It could be temper. When someone's got a temper issue, that concerns me because it's a self-control issue. It's there's some internal things going on that they haven't worked out. There's a lot of unresolved issues in them, and I want someone that's internally got it together, where I can just trust that this person can If I've got someone who's got a boiling volcano within them, I don't know that I want to be brainstorming with them or giving feedback or an annual review to someone like that. There's passive aggressive things. I tell you what, that could just drive a leader crazy. Where I'm just not a game player. I've never been patient with that. If you've got a concern, a problem, then you need to come tell me. If you don't come and tell me, I'm not going to play 30 guesses here about what you're upset about. But there are people that do that. They won't tell you to your face.
But you're going to have to figure it out.
You're going to figure it out. It should be obvious. If I have to tell you, then it's not worth it. And also just people that miss deadlines, that just consistently underperform. And I tell you what, as a leader, I have real trouble with people who always have an excuse. And some people, they put more creativity into their excuses than into their performance. And so that's just a couple of things to say. I could have a long list of things like that, but I've worked with people long enough that I would just say observe the red lights. When the red lights start going off, and you see stuff that's not healthy in people. If you're a leader, you're in the people business, and so just get on it and realize, I've got a problem here. If people are acting that way, that's just not. I can't allow that. I need to confront that. And I've been around some people. I don't know what it is necessarily that drives them internally, but they just have to be at the center of attention, and the spotlight just needs to be on them. And it's just really hard to build a team when you've got people like that have to be in the limelight all the time. So if you've got those kind of situations, maybe you're a pastor and you've got someone in your church that just has to always be the one talking. You really need to pull them aside and just point out to them, hey, why do you have this need? Won't be pleasant, but it's better than letting it go on.
And something that I've learned working with you too is when you have those conversations with people, it's you think, oh well, that's so awkward, and it's rude to that person, but really it's rude to everyone else in the room to allow that to continue.
Yeah, exactly right. It's like, because I don't want to make it awkward for this individual who has issues, I'm going to make it awkward for everybody else who doesn't have this issue.
Right. Right.
Another one is just the power of pleasantness. Pleasantness power. Have you ever just known the difference with people that were pleasant? And it's something, it might be as simple as just having a smile on your face. There is such a thing as what they call a resting face, where you may not necessarily be miserable, but you look miserable. And I've had people like that. It's just when their face is resting, it just rests in sort of a frown and
scowl.
And that's like, are you okay? Are you upset? Oh yeah, I'm fine. Well, okay. Well, the look on your face really was
telling a different story.
Someone just died, and you're trying to fight back tears. No, that's just the way I look when I'm, that is the way some people are. But I'll tell you what, there is an enormous power when someone walks in the room with a smile on their face, or just kind, or just thoughtful, or takes a moment just to say something nice, or is just upbeat.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you, if you're starting out in your leadership career and you can just cultivate a pleasant demeanor, a smile on your face, that is worth, I think, a whole nother degree in your arsenal, in your resume. Just people want pleasant people around them, and that's a choice you make. There are people who think, well, I just don't feel like that way today. Well, part of leadership is learning how to overcome how you feel and acting how you should be. And if you start acting pleasant, it's amazing how you start to feel more. Because, of course, you start bringing pleasant responses from people. And
and it's that, and there's more than one way to be positive and pleasant. It doesn't mean you're
doesn't be shallow necessarily,
or you have to be peppy or whatever. But there's ways to exude pleasantness and positivity that fits your personality. But it's you don't have to be somebody else, but you can be a happier,
Yeah.
more cheerful version of yourself.
And I've known people that I just know full well that if they would just learn to smile more and be a little more upbeat and not negative, that their whole career could dramatically change. Opportunities would come their way for no other reason than they just smiled more. They were just more pleasant. It's just, if you just want to figure out a way in this new year of being more effective in your role, just learn to be more pleasant.
Of course, now you don't have to smile because you're wearing a mask.
Yeah, no. Now you can frown. And so
you can frown with your mouth and smile with your eyes.
A fifth thing is just, I just throw this out here as a freebie. Just pray more in down times and read more. We all have down times, and I tell you what, especially in light of stuff going on in America today, I just realize I need to be praying more, and I'm not just talking about your morning quiet times. I'm talking about through the course of your day, just those throw up prayers where if you ever read the book of Nehemiah, it's interesting how he'll all through the book of Nehemiah, he'll just have these little prayers. It might just be a sentence, but it's just, God help me as I do this or whatever. And God honor this. And just almost under his breath, but he's just kind of communing with God along the day.
Yeah.
And again, I think when you do that, when you consciously, whether you pray out loud or not, or just in your own mind, but as you sort of converse with God through the day, it's amazing if you just keep bringing God into the mix, how different it feels. There's a lot of times where I just don't feel as alone because I as I'm talking with God about this, maybe I'm on my way to a tense meeting, and as I'm walking down the hallway, and Lord, I really need you to help me with this one. You know that I struggle to know how to relate to this kind of personality, but help me just to not lose my temper. Help me to just stay positive. Help me to smile. So try to fill some of those gap spaces throughout your day with prayer. And you might be surprised at at some of the things that come out of your mouth and the way you respond and the patience that you have. Maybe just one last thing, we'll take a break, is just stretch your thinking. Always be doing something that is pushing on the edge of your thinking. I know you do this a lot, Sam. You're pushing all over the place. But I was just looking. And this is probably more of an issue than a strength. But lately, I get a lot of people that have written books, and they'll send me a copy, and they're really interesting books. And there's books I really want to read. But so I'll start reading I really want to read this. I need to study this, and you kind of read into it a bit, but then you've got 3 other books you're trying to finish off and write a book review on. And so, I've got this 2 stacks of books right now on my desk I'm working through. But I was looking at the other day, and I've got a book, for instance, I'm reading right now, which I want to talk about on a podcast coming up on introverts and how they work. And I really want to understand introverts better to know how to get the most out of them. There's a biography on Martin Luther. I've got 2 books right now on spiritual warfare. I just realized I hadn't read a lot on that. I've got a couple of classics, like one by Seneca, one by Virgil, some classics from back in the Roman days that I've always wanted to read. I was reading a history of the rise of Christianity, just about finished that. Someone wrote a good book on the church in these times. But there's a book on morality by a Jewish scholar that I also want to probably discuss at some point on a podcast. But I was kind of looking at the diversity and partly I guess that's why I read a lot of different kinds of books now, just depending on my mood and what I want to take with me on the airplane. I don't want to just be reading all the same kind of things. I want to read someone that uses terminology and maybe refers to things in science or history that I'm not familiar with. I may need to have a dictionary on my desk. I'm looking up some words, but I'm being stretched. And so don't just read stuff you always agree with and you like. Read stuff that, our book club that we do with you and my kids. We've read books by devout atheists. And of course, I disagreed with lots of what they were saying, but it was interesting to sort of get a sense of an atheist take on some things. And so I would want to ask our listeners, what is one thing that you're reading or studying or a podcast you're listening to right now that maybe even makes you angry, but it makes you think too, and it stretches you, and maybe it's going to add some new insights and nuances into your thinking because you kind of read outside your lane a little bit and stretched yourself.
Well, that's good, and I'm a huge fan of that kind of stuff. So, well, we'll take a break here, and then we'll wrap up. Richard and Daniel Blackaby will be at the Billy Graham Training Center at the Cove on May 17th through 19th, 2021. The title of this event is On the Move, How God Increases Your Spiritual Influence. It was originally scheduled to be held this year, but due to COVID-19 has been rescheduled. You can find out more and register at thecove.org. Links will also be in the show notes. Well, Richard, as we continue down this potpourri strewn path, what are some other random thoughts from Richard Blackaby?
Another random thought is take a moment. Just take a moment. Not take a knee, take a moment. And what I mean by that is especially take a moment before entering. And so, for instance, maybe you're at the end of the day and you're coming home. And you've had a stressful day at work. You've driven through traffic. You're kind of stressed, and
or you've been working from home, and your kids have been there. all day.
And you're even more stressed. But you're about to enter your home again. You're about to enter into the fray. Maybe you're about to leave your home office and go out into the thoroughfare of the rest of your house, where all the kids are. Come out of the basement office up into the main floor, but. Here's an idea. Before you open that door and enter into interaction with your family, stand outside that door for 30 seconds and just ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be when I walk in that door? If I'm a dad, what kind of dad do I want to be when I start seeing those kids? When I see my wife, what kind of husband do I want to be? Or maybe you're about to enter into a boardroom and you've got your staff, your leadership team all sitting there waiting for you to come in and guide them. Take just 30 seconds and say, what kind of boss do I want to be today? What kind of leader do I want to be?
Yeah.
I know I'm kind of stressed. I know I'm distracted. I know I just got off a kind of a stressful phone call. But before I walk in this room, sometimes what happens is we're already entering the room before we've really composed ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're off balance.
And we're reacting.
We're reacting. We're still upset about the last encounter we had, and we're not ready to be at our best, to lead with our best foot forward. And I'll just tell you, sometimes don't be, if you're like me and you're kind of type A, it's like you just charge from meeting to meeting. You haven't even recovered. You haven't gained your balance from the last meeting, and now you're coming in off balance into the next meeting. And sometimes you stop, and I've literally done that where I've stood outside my house door and said, I'm grumpy right now, and I don't want to be a grumpy dad. I don't want my kids to see dad coming home grumpy. I got to get it together. I got to just sort of purge my thoughts. I've got to just breathe in a prayer, take a deep breath, and say, let me leave that at work. Now I'm dad. Let me put my dad hat on and put my stressed out boss at work hat off. And now let me walk in the door. Or let me walk into, I'm a little upset. I'm a little concerned. But I've got to compose myself here because my leadership team needs to know that I'm confident. I know we're going to get through this. We're going to solve this problem. So deep breath. Lord, help me. Give me strength. Put a smile on my face. Give me confidence. Now I'm going to walk in the room. If you're a pastor and you're about to get in the pulpit and preach, sometimes you need to breathe a prayer to say, God, I'm tired. I didn't sleep well last night. My mind's racing.
These church members are really bugging me lately.
Someone made a rude comment to me just as I was about to go, as I entered the auditorium, but now I've got to be this man of God. God, I don't think I'm ready yet. Help me.
Yeah.
So take a moment before you enter and just let the Spirit of God help get you ready for that entrance, so that you come in, you enter the room, the man or the woman that your people need you to be and that God designed you to be. Another thing is, here's just another random one. Take the stairs. Okay, take the stairs. It's funny to me. I travel a lot. I get to airports and there's I'm going to go up into the Sky Club for Delta, and it's on the second floor. There's an elevator that, and right now, you're only supposed to have about 2 people in elevators, so you may have to wait for a while. And there's a staircase right there. And I've always been inspired by watching people that just routinely say, I could wait here and take an elevator up 1 floor, or I could just walk up the stairs and get a little exercise to stretch my legs. I'm going to be sitting on an airplane for the next hour and a half. Why not take the stairs?
Yeah.
Or, and anyone who has, if you've got, most of us have apps like that on our phones that keep track of how many steps we climbed and how many steps we took. I'll tell you what, in these days, especially if you have a kind of a sedentary kind of office job, any opportunity to take a few extra steps is just get in the mindset of that. It's like when I'm in an airport and there's a moving sidewalk. Most of the time, I'll just walk beside the moving sidewalk. I'll just take the extra steps.
Yeah.
They're just little things add up. And so as a rule, unless it's, you're going up to the 10th floor or something, just as a rule, say, if I can, I'm just going to take the steps. Why avoid steps? Why avoid exercise? Why avoid burning off a few more calories when I could try and stay active? So that's just a freebie. Take the stairs and avoid the moving sidewalk.
How generous.
And there's another one, a question: how much do you change under stress? I had a CEO one time. He gave me kind of a personality test, but it was kind of a stress test. I can't remember the name of it now. But basically, you went through a series of questions about how you related to people, how you handled yourself. And then it said, okay, now imagine, and it how'd you imagine a very stressful situation? Now, the first one was, hey, just a normal day. How would you walk into work, everything's good. How do you talk to people? Now everything's fallen apart and on fire. And now how do you talk to people?
Yeah.
And so when it tabulated those findings from those 2 different scenarios, typically you had 2 dots, and the 1 dot is kind of, it pegged you where you were just normally, how you handled yourself and how you related to others. And then the second dot was how you behave under stress. And of course, that typically was in a not as good of a place. You were ruder, you're less sensitive, and so on. Now, I'm not saying this to brag about myself, because I'm sure if I took the test now, it'd probably be different. But I just remember when this guy had me take the test, he came back and he said, you only had 1 dot. And I was trying to be as honest as I could be, but he said, you only had 1 dot. I said, what do you mean? Did you lose one of my dots? He said, no, it just means that you behave the same way, whether you're under stress or not, at least based on that test. So like I said, I'm not sure I'd always rate that way, but I thought, but that's really how Christians ought to be. As a Christian leader, if you're thoughtful of people, you ought to be thoughtful whether you're under stress or not.
Right.
If you're not rude to people when things are going well, you probably should not be rude with people when things are not going well.
Yeah.
And so my question would just be, do you have 2 dots or 1 in your leadership? Do you lead one way when it's going well and another when it's not? Or can people pretty well take it to the bank when they deal with you? They know what they're going to get, regardless of what's
surprises
going on. Another one, just go out of your way to say thank you. Again, I travel a lot. I deal with people checking in to front desks of hotels. I have flight attendants. I have various people I have to deal with in service industries or in restaurants. And you know what? There's typically, at least for me and the kind of work I do, there's usually opportunities to say thank you. And a lot of times we just kind of presume, well, that's their job. That's their job. They're paid to care for me. They're paid to take care of me. It is amazing to me, though, when you say thank you, the power that is there.
Yeah.
And how many people don't do that? How many people just file off the airplane or get up and leave? And watch what happens when you take a moment just to, and maybe not just even to say thank you, but especially if you point out something that you noticed. Hey, I really appreciate that you did that, or that. Hey, that really meant a lot. Thanks for doing that. Or you really did a great job with that. I want you to know that. I really appreciate it. I noticed that.
Well, I was at a coffee shop the other day, and the barista handed, the drink to a gentleman, and he said, have a nice day. And the guy just took the drink and left. And, I was struck by that, like not even a thanks or you too, or, and it doesn't take much to at least be courteous.
Yeah. Yeah. And because of that, because there's a lot of people acting that way, when you don't act that way, when you actually say thank you, it does make a difference. It has an impact. Maybe one last thing just to say, and that is accomplish something. Accomplish something. And what I mean by that is there's two kinds of work that most people do. One is short term, the other is long term. Long term work can take a while. It may take weeks to get certain projects finished. Other projects you can get done in an hour.
Yeah.
And so the tension sometimes is, well, do I focus all long term or do I focus all short term and never get any long term big projects done? And I would say typically you want to balance. I remember at one point we hired a guy at the seminary to be in charge of all the maintenance of the seminary. And this guy had never been in management before. I'm not the one that hired him. I had a VP that hired him, but he showed potential. He's a hard worker, but he didn't know how to be in management. He'd never been. He needed to learn some things about that. And so, but when he was hired, we had just been doing some renovations around our building, and we've been doing some painting. And so all the baseboards had been pulled off the walls because they were painting, and all the baseboards had to get nailed back onto the walls. And that was going to be this guy's part of his responsibility to get that done. And so when he first gets hired, I'm kind of walking around and I'm noticing all these baseboards all stacked up, and you're having to walk around things. And I mean, there's nails and everybody's kind of noticing, okay, this guy's been here for a day or two, and still we've got a lot of barriers and obstacles and raw wood here that needs to get put back where it goes. And finally, I kind of just stuck my head in his office just to check on him, see how he's doing. And he's in front of his computer. And I said, what are you doing? He said, well, he had this vision that he wanted to develop an annual maintenance plan so that every year everything, filters got changed, light bulbs got changed, everything got changed. And he wanted to get organized. He'd never had this much responsibility, and he wanted to be organized. And I said, you know what? It's great to be organized. It's great to have an annual plan. But you've got people, I said, tripping over baseboards piled up, lying across the floor that they're having to walk past. I said, you need, everyone's going to be ready to have you fired the first week if you don't get, there's some immediate things that need to be done.
Yeah.
And you can sit in front of your computer later in the day, but you know what? It would take you an hour or two to get some of this immediate stuff done. And immediately everybody would notice, hey, this guy's only been here just a day or so, and already look at all this stuff that we can see and notice has been done. He needed to know there's a PR issue sometimes when you're working, that there's some quick stuff you can do that everybody notices, and they get the idea, hey, this guy gets stuff done. But you could be sitting in front of your computer all week developing an extensive annual plan, and you may need to get that plan done, but you need to be aware that there's times where you want to get something done quick, and there's other times to get things worked on long term.
Yeah.
And it's usually not all one or the other. You need wisdom tells you, hey, I can knock off 6 things in the first 2 hours of my day, and then this afternoon I'll think more long term. But there's both end.
Well, and it's not only that you accomplish something and you have something to show for your work, but it's also an encouragement to continue on, because there is that sort of dopamine, I guess, by checking things off the list personally, just to say, okay, well, yeah, at least I did X, Y, and Z today. Like, we still got some bigger projects that are in process, but at least I can say I did these things, and there's that sort of internal, intrinsic value in accomplishing things.
Because there's some big projects. Like I'm working on a book right now that's just a massive project. It's a study Bible project, and I can work all weekend and feel like it's just a black hole of my labors. But then I can put a sermon together or a blog together, and feel like, okay, there's something that's out there now for people to appreciate and receive now. And so I think you need that. I think you're right, Sam. As a contributor, you need to feel like you're contributing something here and making some progress. But then there's some longer-term things that just takes time.
Yeah.
And they're going to be big, and they'll be great when they're done. But in the meantime, you can't have people wait 2 years for you to come up with a contribution, no matter how big it might be. And so ask yourself, do I have the right balance right now? Am I producing some things short-term? And am I investing long-term for some bigger results that will have greater impact in the long run as well?
Well, Richard, this has been a real delight to just kind of bounce around and just different
popcorn thoughts.
Popcorn with Richard. And so, hey, if you guys like this, let us know. Again, if there's anything that struck a chord with you, send us a note, podcast@blackaby.org. You can reach out to Richard on Twitter @RichardBlackaby.
Yeah, and we've had people ask us questions before. We're always glad to dig into some of those, just whether it's something we've talked about or just made you start thinking. Be glad to maybe dig into some of those.
All right. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If this is something you enjoyed, it really makes a difference if you leave a review and a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. We always love hearing from our listeners, so email us at podcast@blackaby.org.